Good morning and good evening, everyone. I am Shafali Dunia, your host for today's event. Welcome to the second YouTube live TV session organized by MOURI Tech. MOURI Tech is one of the youngest CMMI Level 5 achieving organizations with the focus of delivering excellence. Looking at the response we received on our first live session with Srini, we are here to gain insights into the importance of modern performance engineering tools with one of our prominent partners, Tech-Neocortix, a distributed cloud computing services company. It feels great to have such a wonderful audience. The discussion will revolve around importance of performance engineering and how the advent of load testing tools has led to a paradigm shift in monitoring end user performance. If you have any questions, feel free to put into the comment section. We would love to hear from you. Let me now introduce you to our today's speakers. From MOURI Tech, we have Srini Sandaka. Srini is the CTO of MOURI Tech. He is passionate about driving innovation and helping organizations achieve their IT vision. Over the last 20 years, he has successfully led teams in consulting, enterprise architecture, business development, and client relationship management. A very warm welcome to you, Srini.
Thank you. Morning, Shafali.
And representing Tech-Neocortix is Dr. Lloyd Watts. Lloyd is the founder and CEO of Tech-Neocortix Inclusive and serves on its board of directors. Prior to founding Tech-Neocortix, Dr. Watts was the founder of Audience Inclusive in 2000 and served as CEO, raising the first $10 million in venture capital financing. We welcome you, Lloyd.
Thank you very much, Shafali, and very pleased to see you, Srini.
Me too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
CXO is the most awaited event, and we are super excited to have Dr. Watts today with us. We will have a Q&A session at the end, so I request all the attendees to post your questions in the chat window. Let's gear up to gain out of this discussion. Here comes the first question for you, Srini.
Okay.
How do you think performance testing plays a key role in addressing challenges facing organizations today?
Okay. First, let's discuss about the different channels. I think digital channel is one of the phase for any organizations nowadays in this digital era, especially with recent digital acceleration trends that we see. So digital is going to be the main phase for any organization. It's not only performing the transactions, it's also website, any organization website. That is the first impression that by any user that they get. So that's why organizations have to put a lot of efforts to make sure their websites are rendering at the speed that users expect. So nowadays we know that our attention span is very, very low. I can say that within 3 seconds. If we browse every day, right? So if we don't see anything within 3 seconds, our attention span will shift easily. You can check it out, anybody. So then our attention span is grabbed by our peripheral vision, anything that is in our by our peripheral vision. That's why the speed is important factor for any organizations to manage their digital channels. So in order for us to maintain proper speed, so we need to do proper performance testing before we live the site. Any site, it could be your website, it could be e-commerce, anything. So it's not only just customers are going to access this, but also employee experience or partner experience. That is also matters because our expectations have changed recently by these mobile applications and all the latest and greatest user experience that is brought by various frameworks and all. That's why it is very important for us to do a proper performance test to make sure we are rendering our websites or our e-commerce or any of the digital channels at the expectations of users, which means the less than 3 seconds. So this performance testing is going to save a lot of, because this performance, every second, the performance that is going to impact the revenue. It's not only revenue, but also the branding that is going to be impacted. So I don't want to see a website that's lazy. That means that's taking a lot of time to load the content. And I have to wait for so much of time to see what I wanted to see. So that's why if we can do a proper performance testing before we get any site, any digital channel to go live, so that's going to save a lot of dollars directly. That's what I would say. The speed is a factor.
Agreed, Srini. Performance testing is an integral part in today's business environment. Lloyd, here is your first question. Neocortix has a unique shared economy model. Can you throw some light on that?
Yes, happy to do that. We have an unusual approach to providing cloud services. Most cloud services will create huge data centers and populate them with large numbers of servers. It's a very expensive proposition. They have to have huge air conditioning systems, and there's a huge upfront capital investment in order to offer data centers in large locations all over the world. Neocortix has a new approach to doing this, which is we rent time on people's mobile phones all over the world using an app called Phone Paycheck, and we pay people in US dollars to contribute their time on their cell phones to our global mobile network. This resource then becomes like a distributed data center that's located finally all over the world in last mile locations where people are living. So like the living room in Oklahoma is one way of phrasing it. And this is a perfect resource for doing performance testing and load testing in particular. Rather than testing from one data center, we can do our testing from many global last mile locations, creating a much more realistic distribution of load, much closer to what happens on real Black Friday events, and a much better measurement of response times. And that's the key. It's the measuring of the response times that takes into account where the users are in the world and where they are on the internet, namely at the end of whatever distance they have to their location, whatever country and city they're in, and then whatever whatever their last residential internet service is, and then their final Wi-Fi connection. So our shared economy model, with having many people contribute their mobile devices, creates it's a new technology for performance testing. And we're extremely excited that MOURI Tech has become an early adopter of this technology, which gives MOURI Tech a remarkable competitive advantage in its performance practice services.
Thank you, Lloyd, for sharing those insights.
You're welcome, of course.
Srini, here comes your second question. How do you think modern performance engineering helps optimize end user performance?
So let's talk about how the performance testing is evolved. So the earlier olden days, maybe 10, 15 years back, so performance testing is all about testing at the server level or at the application level. We never cares about how this application is rendered into the endpoint. And endpoint, it could be your laptop, tablet, mobile. So we were used to test only, okay, whether the server is able to handle the load that is required to handle, or is it my application is able to handle with few scenarios that is. But now with the modern performance testing, especially measuring the load all the way to the endpoint device, that's the key here. So if I test my application at the server level, and if it takes a lot of time to load it to the endpoint, That's where the most of these user dissatisfaction is going to be, and that's impact the revenue of any organization. So recently, I see some of the trends. So for every hour of this, the latency, our few seconds of the latency, there are hundred thousands of dollars that is going to impact, or some of the big organizations is going to impact in millions for every milliseconds that the latency that is adding to the application. Especially this modern performance test engineering is going to focus on how the application is going to render, how fast the application is going to render at the endpoint device. That's where the Lloyd, the business model, right? So that's going to add a lot of value to the process, because that's going to mimic the real scenario. It's not like you're testing it from a conditional environment, something like that. It's going to be the real users are going to, the application is going to test it from the real users based on geographic location, based on the different various parameters that really mimic the real-time scenario. That helps a lot.
Completely agree. Those are the key points in the value of the additional global last mile performance testing. There's three components to, broadly speaking, there's three components to the received response time. There's the back end part, the time spent by the server to manage whatever requests are given. There's the transit time to get from the server to the person, to the end user, and then there's the rendering time, as you've said, Srini, right? And so by using testing and delivering the load and measuring the response times from mobile devices in people's homes, we're able to capture all three of those components. Now, that's unusual. Most performance testing practices will test from a data center that is very close to the server under test, possibly even in the same data center. Right? They'll test from a machine that's located in the same local network inside that same data center. Well, we think that that's a real mistake. That means that you're really just measuring directly the response of the server, and you're completely ignoring the transit time and the render time. And that's why we're so impressed with MOURI Tech for recognizing the importance of that, and taking advantage of this new technology to provide an extremely competitive offering for MOURI Tech's customers. It's really a remarkable step forward, and MOURI Tech is playing an important role in the early adoption of the technology.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, Srini. Lloyd.
So,
Who
who are you going to shoot next? Myself or Lloyd? Next question.
Yeah, it will be for Lloyd.
Okay.
So, Lloyd, what, according to you, triggered the shift from conventional load testing to the global last mile testing?
Well, that's a great question. We basically created a new technology, and then we're looking for an application for it, or for several applications for it. So usually the paradigm shifts come from a new technology becoming available and then applying that into a new business application, right? So, even in medicine, the availability of new microscopes means that you can discover new things. The ability to see something different allows you to do something different. And our network of mobile devices that we had created with our shared economy business model meant that we had a new resource that we could use for something new. And so the question was, what can we do with this? Well, it would be perfectly well suited to simulating a network of real users on real websites distributed all over the world. So really the short answer is it's an application of a new technology that simply didn't exist before. Up until a few years ago, the only way to do load testing was from a server and a data center. And in fact, it's a remarkable thing that the field is quite mature. It's been going load testing since the advent of Load Runner in the early 1990s. This technology has existed for so long that now it's I think quite common practice that performance engineers have only known that way of doing it. And they've never sort of experienced a world in which global last mile load testing was possible, really simulating what the real users experience and how their devices interact with the network and with the server. So it's a new thing now, and it's taking some time for the performance engineering community to get used to the idea of the new technology. It's a much better simulation of the real world environment, but it's not what people have been using for 20 years. And so it actually takes some time for the new technology to be adopted because it simply is unfamiliar. So it's a remarkable opportunity.
Thank you, Lloyd. Those are some really interesting inputs.
Thank you.
Now, let me move to the next question. It is for you, Srini. What are your thoughts on how global last mile testing can help overcome the performance challenges facing retail or omni-channel platforms?
So as Lloyd mentioned, right? So every new technology or new business challenge is going to create another new business model or new technology invention. It's a ripple effect. So especially the mobile devices. So the smartphones, the usage of smartphones, increasing a lot of adaptability for mobile devices or mobile applications, especially in this case, retailers. So most of the time we use the mobile devices to order anything, to track anything, simply because it's pretty simple. So most of our time is spending in mobile device, even for enterprise side of it. So most of my time I use my mobile to check my emails, the Teams, and everything. So in this case, the mobile is going to play a crucial role for going forward for any enterprise application. Let's say, for example, m-commerce, the mobile commerce is going to be 3/4 of the e-commerce business by 2023. This is, I read it one of the survey they mentioned. This is the prediction. So that means there is a lot of importance and a lot of focus that needs to be done on these endpoint devices. It could be mobile, tablet. I think mobile tablet is mostly these common things. So we have to make sure, measure this application performance from these and mobile devices, especially. Otherwise, again, it's going to directly impact your revenue, especially retail industries. So with the recent, the past 2 years, with the digital acceleration trends, everybody is using, even to order pizza, I use the mobile device. I like the mobile device instead of a classical website from the, from my laptop. So because it's ease of use and it's pretty simple to use this device, application from mobile. That's why it's very, very crucial for any retail organizations to use to measure the performance from the mobile devices, especially to mimic the the real-time scenario, not really from a data center, from a conditional environment, but real scenario. Because that's why I like this model. So it's a kind of the Tech-Neocortix model. It's kind of Uber of performance testing, because you're leveraging the shared economy model. That means you don't, Tech-Neocortix literally don't own any devices, but they have largest devices network in the global, right? So, and it's going to simulate geographical location. So, and maybe you use this application while you're driving or while you're walking, running. So each one of them creates different performance metrics.
Indeed. Actually, there's various reasons with our shared economy model that we actually restrict people only to use it when they're in their homes on their Wi-Fi connections. So there's a particular reason for that, to ensure that that they have reliability of service. So one of the requirements is that if one of our customers or one of MOURI Tech's customers launches a load test, that we don't want them to have a service drop in the middle of the test with the device under test. So we do have some restrictions on making sure that people's devices are continuously available. And for doing that, we require them to be on their Wi-Fi service. So it's a mobile device using Wi-Fi services in their residential areas. But your point is exactly right, though, that it's the key is that it's a mobile device, and it's where people are actually doing their shopping in their real last mile locations, where they live, and not in a data center, and especially not all people in one data center. That's the crazy thing about the standard way of doing it, is right. It's simulating all of the users of Black Friday who would normally be all over a given country or all over the world, and saying, let's pretend that they're all in the same place. They're all in the same room, all using the same internet connection. When you think about it that way, it's crazy. That's a terrible simulation of the real Black Friday event. And there's a lot of ways, some subtle and some horrendous, where it's really getting it wrong to simulate it from that single nearby data center. It's really quite a serious mistake. But for 20 years, that was the only way that people could do it. What's surprising now is that now that a new technology is available, that people are so used to doing it the old way that it seems like, wow, this new approach is radical. It's, who would have thought of such a thing? No, it's the obviously right way to do it. And it just takes some time for a mature field to recognize that the innovation is necessary.
For any new technology, you require a lot of education
yes.
to the customers or users. So then it's easy, but initially you have to go through a lot of struggles. And Lloyd, I have one more question. So one question. So how do we make sure the security, especially around the data? So nowadays, data is a very critical component of anybody's life, right? So
yes, really good question. So of course, that's actually one of the things that we had to invest in most heavily in order to offer our product. We knew that security was of the utmost importance to our customers, and we couldn't launch our product without a really secure solution. So yes, there's a number of factors that we've built into our system. The first is isolation of the customer's use of the mobile phone from the owner of the phone, because as you said, it is a shared economy. It's kind of like the Uber of cloud computing, and that means then that the customer's job, the load test work, is being done on a phone that is owned by some person out in the world. And in order to ensure safety of the client's job, we have to have complete isolation between the client's job and the owner of the phone. And so we do that by building a extremely secure Linux container that isolates the processes and the memory from the customer's work and for the phone. So the owner of the phone. So that means that there's isolation in both directions. Basically, the owner of the phone can't see the data or the processes that are being used inside the customer's process, and similarly, the client who is running load testing work or other kinds of work on that device can't see anything that the user is doing, cannot access their videos, their memory, their audio, their camera, any of those things. There's complete isolation in both directions. So that's the essential property. We must have two-way isolation, and we achieve that using encryption in rest and encryption in flight. That is, any data that is sent to and from our container from any controlling server is encrypted, of course, and any data that is stored on the device, like, for example, temporary load test response times, or, for example, temporary data files that might be used to access the load test target, all of those have to be encrypted at rest. So basically, cryptography is the key to security, both for data at rest and data in flight.
Nice, nice, nice.
Yeah, and it's an essential point. We couldn't have launched our product without that. Cost us a couple of years and about $1 million, which is a lot for our, for startups. But basically, there was no point in launching without it, and so we were happy to make that investment in a secure technology that our customers could use with confidence.
Agreed, agreed. Those are some really interesting insights which you have shared. Many organizations and leaders will find it helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So next question is for you, Lloyd. What are the current challenges enterprises are facing with regards to performance and load testing?
There's many challenges. In the industry, there's a focus on accelerating, so they call it shift left, accelerating the time that it takes to do performance testing, to doing performance testing in more rapid DevOps cycles. So basically, customers are wanting to release new versions of their software on a very regular schedule. And so that puts pressure on the performance testing team to be able to keep up with that accelerated schedule. So that means then that there has to be an easy way to incorporate the testing into these rapid development cycles. So it's important, therefore, that the development tools and the testing tools should be very easy to use. They should have convenient interfaces, and they should be automatable. The key is the ability to automate them so that they're part of a continuous integration, continuous development pipeline. That's sometimes called CI/CD pipeline. And so it's important that any tool such as ours have an API interface so that it can be made an automated process. And so we're proud to have announced that recently. Not only is there a convenient human interface for the developers and performance engineers as they are developing their tests, but then when the time comes to put it into automation, we have an ability to have your computers basically launch the tests for you, collect the results, and analyze them. So automation is one of the keys in order to provide the accelerated development times that modern applications demand. That's one of the keys, is speed of delivery. Another one, extremely important, is the accuracy of the modeling. For load testing in particular, what you're looking for two things, really. You want to know what is the load at which our system would fail. We want to make sure that that load is higher than the expected load. So we want to be able to ensure that we'll be able to handle a Black Friday event. And that means we have to have a realistic simulation in order to know that with confidence that the predicted result is good. It's not just about whether the system will fail, but whether or not it will slow down. And therefore, we need also to know what are the actual response times. And as Srini said, therefore, we need to measure them accurately, including all the components, back-end, transit time, and front-end.
That is wonderful. I think we are at the top of the hour. So let's see if we can take some questions from audience. We have one question. What measures do we need to take to make sure stress testing is matching the production load?
Yeah, well, so that's basically one of the tough jobs of a performance engineer. Of course, you have to estimate accurately the expected load. So there are many different factors that go into designing your tests. The first one is historical. So if it's, for example, Black Friday that you're anticipating, you know that your load during the year may be at a certain level, but last Black Friday you had a huge spike. right? So historically, you can look back to the previous Black Friday and see what kind of an increase you had relative to your baseline prior to Black Friday. And then now you may have a new baseline this year, and so you would scale it proportionally. So historical reference is one of the ways of doing it. You may have other market insights. Your marketing team may say something like, we've launched a new set of products and we're expecting a high demand. We see a lot of social media excitement about it. But all of this is kind of the magic art of predicting the amount of load. And that's one of the things that makes a performance engineer's job both exciting and challenging, is accurately estimating that required load.
That is wonderful. We have a question. How to check which web page is not performing optimally? Srini, maybe you would like to answer.
I think there are a lot of tools that are available these days in browsers, especially Lighthouse in the Chrome. You can check, and it will provide you the metrics that are required for you to know the metric, different kinds of loads, how this web page has been loaded, and what is the different measures that are there. And this is one of the free tools that anybody can leverage to check the performance of the web page that is being loaded. And there are a lot of other mobile applications also available for you to check certain performance metrics on your mobile, from your mobile device.
Agreed with that. Can I chime in on that as well too? So Srini's exactly answered that, right? So Lighthouse, Puppeteer, web page test, there's a number of tools that are designed for that purpose. And of course, Neocortix supports them as well too. So you can do global last mile load testing, get the server response times, the transit response times, and also the front end rendering times using tools like Puppeteer and Lighthouse. So yes, of course, we've had to support those. We're pleased to support those tools as well, just as Srini said.
Okay, so let's take one last question. How to perform load test from different geolocations?
Well, perhaps I can take that one. So that's basically what we do. We do that all day long. That's our primary focus. But the question of how do you do it, in fact, is, well, we make it really easy to do that. Our browser-based Neocortix load test product makes the orchestration of all of these devices, spinning them up, launching them, monitoring them, shutting them down, makes it all easy. We have our own central server that manages all of those devices, so that the end customer, MOURI Tech or MOURI Tech's clients, don't have to deal with any of that stuff. They simply click a few buttons on a web page, or send a simple command to launch through our API, and we do all the rest. We spin up those instances quickly, launch the tests for you, collect all the results. So it's extremely easy. All you have to do basically is tell us what regions you want. So, if you want a global test, you get that by default. If you want just the United States, or just India, or just Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, or South America, whatever it is you want, you can have any of those geographic regions just by selecting them in a drop-down menu. So we've made it as easy as it could possibly be.
Thank you, Lloyd. Thank you, Srini and Lloyd, for those informative answers which have shed light upon a lot of queries asked by our attendees. Appreciate you taking time out.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. Very happy to be here, and thank you, Srini and Shefali.
Thank you, Lloyd. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'd like to thank each and every one of you for joining this session today. We believe you have found this discussion very interesting and helpful. Hope we have addressed all your queries. Still, if you have any queries, you can just drop your name, email, company name, and phone number in comment section, or else you can just visit the MOURI Tech website and fill in the inquiry form. We would be delighted to address them all. We are geared up to come up with similar leadership connects. Do follow us on various social platforms to get the updates. We welcome your suggestions on related topics you want us to discuss upon the upon this CXO Lounge. Do subscribe and stay tuned for more.